So Trump won the election. You might have heard the crying. Honestly, I haven't seen a man beat a woman that brutally since the Olympics. The Democrats were in tears as they discovered that gender ideology, mass immigration and communism aren't as popular as their diversity coordinator told them it was. Honestly, if your fetish is ugly people crying, you must have a cock like a pit bull's chew toy by now. These people were clearly terrified because unemployment fell under Trump's previous administration and they're worried they might have to get a job. People condemned Trump even if they'd stolen his haircut. Kamala spent the campaign calling Trump
Adolf Hitler.
Then when Trump won, she rang him to congratulate him. Do you really want a leader who congratulates Hitler? Either she was lying or she's willing to work with Hitler. Still, what do you expect from someone who has a conversation with the camera app on their phone? Even more crazily, the Western world might have been saved from communism by a dead squirrel and the Amish. Despite Democrat attempts to put off the Amish by using electronic voting systems instead of some sort of horse-powered pencil and paper system, 180,000 Amish came out to vote, helping Trump win the swing state of Pennsylvania. Why did the Amish come out and what's the connection with a dead squirrel? I'll explain later. It's all to do with government overreach as the American state under the Democrats became more bloated and intrusive because Kamala is a communist. I saw people mocking this Trump supporter for calling her a communist but being unable to articulate why.
Define communism.
Kamala Harris.
Well, that's an example. Give me a definition.
It's Kamala Harris.
Listen, just because he couldn't enunciate why doesn't mean that his gut feeling is wrong. And I'll show how the Democrats tried to steal the election. I'm not talking about faulty election machines that use the same technology as a cash machine from 1992. And I'm not talking about the foreign election interference of Britain's Labour government sending 100 staff to help the Democrats, which totally backfired because if a British socialist knocks on your door, you'd vote for anything that doesn't give you teeth like that. And I'm not talking about the alleged steal of 2020 when Trump says ballot officials suddenly found loads of votes down the back of the couch that made that famous big jump. No, I think it's perfectly legitimate that in 2020 about 17 million more people came out to vote Democrat than in 2012, 2016 or 2024. I don't know why these people sat out the election in other years. I'm not suggesting that there's any wrongdoing at all in 2020. I know some people will say that the entire apparatus administrating and counting the votes is mainly public sector workers who are overwhelmingly aligned with Democrats who may feel tempted to fudge things in the Democrats' favour, but I think that's a conspiracy theory, and conspiracy theories only come true half the time. And I'm definitely not suggesting that Joe Biden was so furious at being dumped from the running by the Democrats that he told his cheat team to stand down. No, I think the most likely explanation is that these missing 17 million Democrat voters were so morally pure that they were raptured to heaven shortly after voting for Joe Biden in 2020, leaving us sinners behind. But the suspicions over the count in 2020 did lead to extra scrutiny this election, when election officials in Pennsylvania planned to stop counting and restart in the morning, which would possibly give an opportunity for somebody to tamper with ballots. Republicans threatened to sue, so officials agreed to continue the count, and Republicans won the state. No, when I talk about Democrats rigging the election, I'm talking about them using mass immigration to tilt the electoral balance in their favour, bringing through misinformation laws to make it illegal to question the government, shutting down free speech and jailing their political opponents. Illegal immigration surged under the Democrats. Where did these illegal immigrants go? Well, the Democrats disproportionately put them in swing states and states that vote Republican. Immigrants tend to vote Democrat, and Democrats make it very easy for anyone in America to vote. There's no need for ID in a lot of states. This is a way of rigging the electoral system. Elections tend to hinge on a relatively small number of votes in swing states. By dropping tens of thousands of illegal immigrants into those states, they're changing the electoral map forever. This is anti-democratic. Surely the citizens of a country should decide its direction. But the way the Democrats see it, if you won't vote the way that they want you to, they'll import people who will. This is hugely popular with the big businesses that fund the Democrats. Big business and the state loves it when workers don't have babies. Babies take 20 years to enter the workforce, cost money in maternity leave and health, education, and distract the workers who parent them. Big business would way rather import migrant workers who will work for less, complain less, and arrive fully grown and ready to work the machines. Even the mainstream media, Newsweek, wrote scathingly of the migration policy. Employers are actively displacing the domestic workforce by hiring newly arrived immigrants from Haiti. All this at a time when 7 million American men between the ages of 25 and 55 are unemployed, and almost 3/4 of America's employment growth has come from immigrants since 2019. The Haitian migrants take lower wages that American citizens just couldn't survive on. They rent cots in cramped house shares with landlords sticking 25 immigrants in one house. And while companies aligned with the Democrats are making big bucks from their cheap labour, which also winnows away the bargaining power of other workers, it's costing the American taxpayer enormous sums. But the Democrat-run government wasn't bringing immigrants in to improve the economy. They were just bringing them in to rig the system because they know they're likely to vote Democrat. The Labour Party in the UK are doing a similar thing. Immigrants to the UK traditionally tend to accumulate in the areas where there are already lots of immigrants. But those areas are already safe Labour areas. They overwhelmingly vote left-wing. Angela Rayner's Operation Scatter will move immigrants into Tory areas to make those areas more likely to elect a Labour candidate. But clearly, airdropping tens of thousands of Haitians onto small towns in swing states is going to cause some social friction. Haiti isn't like America, which is an advanced civilization. Haiti is a failed state, and people's attitudes and cultures don't evaporate when they set foot in the West. Here's a resident from Springfield in Ohio, which received 20,000 Haitian immigrants, trying to get answers from town officials, who simply shut down the meeting.
Do we know where the individuals we're discussing are coming from? Where their point of origin is? Because you're treating them like lawful U.S. citizens, which they are not.
Okay, so I'm going to cut it off because we've had 3 people to come up. I'm going to cut it off because we have no reason, again, we have no reason to launch an investigation or to treat people differently because of how they look. There's no reason for it.
Who said that?
Well, that's just what I'm saying. I just said that. Tiffany just said that.
Okay,
so
I didn't say that.
But I said it. But there's no reason for us to discuss this any further.
These individuals came from Haiti.
Are valid concerns that we need to
How
get
are valid concerns, Laura? People come here all the time. We visit Birmingham. We
Haiti.
visit other.
Haiti is a failed state.
We
Their
visit
president was
everywhere.
assassinated in 2021. There
We're
is
done.
no way the State Department can vet these
We're
individuals.
done, and I'm
You
gonna
should not
ask
cut
this.
him off. Please let him talk.
You had a
shut
chance.
up
I was
and let
very
people
specific. Okay, I'm gonna ask all of you to leave because this meeting is over. If having no other further business, I need a motion to adjourn. All right, second?
Second.
All in
Good to
favor?
know.
They're sitting up there lying.
Good to know. Don't want to hear the truth.
This isn't representative democracy, even if the media spin it as reviving a struggling small town in Ohio. Oh, they're struggling so much, please give them 20,000 Haitians to improve their standard of life. Dumping thousands of Haitians on small towns is obviously going to cause problems. To stop anyone complaining, the government is encouraging Haitians to report hate crimes. Here's a billboard advertising the hate crime hotline in English and in Creole or whatever they speak in Haiti. Hate crime laws are an anti-democratic form of societal control. If you question the government's plans to move tens of thousands of Haitians into your small town, you're committing a hate crime. And hate speech laws are just one way the state can silence people. Here's senior Democrat John Kerry talking about removing American citizens' constitutional right to freedom of speech in order to curb disinformation, revealing the intention of the Kamala administration to end free speech by criminalizing disinformation.
It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go, and that people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change.
But who gets to decide what's disinformation? The government does, of course. The government can decide any criticism of the government is disinformation and send its critics to jail. It's a system that works really well in North Korea. Kamala also made it clear she was coming for X, or Twitter as everybody still calls it, because she thinks that it's a platform for misinformation.
He has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation, and that has to stop.
Well, Kamala didn't want to shut Twitter down 4 years ago when Twitter was colluding with the Democrats, the media and executive branches of the government to spread misinformation by having the Hunter Biden laptop story classed as a conspiracy theory and suppressed. This was the news that Joe Biden's son Hunter had handed his laptop in for repair, and it was stuffed with incriminating evidence like videos of him using prostitutes, smoking crack with prostitutes, and possible evidence of corruption with Ukrainian authorities. And Joe Biden, with Hunter paid huge sums of money which people say could only be for political access to his father. Although having seen how much crack he was smoking, I think his work rate would have been insane. He could have done the job of 20 people. He was worth every penny. And there are many examples of disinformation and misinformation turning out to be valid. Look at the COVID lab leak hypothesis, or Joe Biden's cognitive decline, or revelations over the Southport suspects' jihadi manuals. These were all misinformation until they suddenly became information. And what about the misinformation spread by progressives, such as communism is good and men can be women by changing their pronouns on LinkedIn? And what about the misinformation spread by Democrat-aligned media, such as when 60 Minutes interviewed Kamala and instead of holding her feet to the fire, they actually edited her answers to make her look less medically stupid?
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
And what about spurious claims of misinformation, such as when Newsweek did a fact check on Trump's photo op at a McDonald's and said it was staged? Oh, it was staged? Really? I thought he worked there. It's worth remembering that Western civilization prospered when information was decentralized and the government was seen as fallible instead of a central authority decreeing what's the truth. We, the people, can argue freely amongst ourselves and decide what we think the truth is. And instead of the government being all-powerful, we can replace them. The Democrats want to change that by exercising central control over information and rigging the electorate to make it virtually impossible to remove them. This is a move towards a North Korean-style system where the central authority has decided that the supreme leader Kim Jong-un is a living god. Anyone who questions this is guilty of spreading misinformation and is sentenced to death under the country's misinformation laws. Now, I'm not saying Trump is an ideal candidate, but he's infinitely better than communism. Speaking of which, communist leaders jail their political opponents just like the Democrats tried to do. The head of Stalin's secret police, Lavrenti Beria, famously said, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime." Well, the Democrats have their man and they've leveraged every possible bit of legal chicanery to find the crime. There's a pile of legal cases against Trump higher than Hunter Biden at 4 a.m. The 34 felonies you always hear people talking about are all for falsifying business records relating to paying off Stormy Daniels, the porn star that Donald Trump slept with. Falsifying records like this is almost always treated as a misdemeanor, but apparently because paying her off could be seen as influencing an election, it's a big deal. But the prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, is a Democrat politician. Never mind a prosecutor influenced by the Democrats, this one is part of the party. And if that doesn't stink enough for you, how about this? Democrat politicians have done the same thing and avoided prosecution. I'm not talking about Bill Clinton paying one of his victims, Paula Jones, $850,000. I'm talking about the former Democrat vice presidential nominee, John Edwards, who cheated on his wife while she was dying and fathered a child with the mistress. Oh, such a nice guy. Well, he paid the woman off in a similar situation to Trump and escaped all charges. But with other cases pending against Trump, the Democrats made no secret of their intention to finish the job.
Thinks he has a right under the Supreme Court ruling on immunity to be able, if need be, if it was the case, to actually eliminate, physically eliminate, shoot, kill someone who he believes to be a threat to him. I mean, So I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We gotta lock him up.
And they somehow found the one remaining Democrat woman who hasn't already accused him of sexual harassment, who decades later decides that right before an election is the time for justice. Or did the Democrats need Trump to be taken out of the equation another way? Here's Democratic politician Stacey Plaskett accidentally revealing a little too much.
Having Trump not only have had the codes, but now having the classified information for Americans and being able to put that out and share it in his resort with anyone and everyone who comes through should be terrifying to all Americans, and he needs to be stopped.
Maybe it's just an accidental slip of the tongue, but Freud would say there's no such thing as an accident. But then, I guess Freud never went into a business deal with Hillary Clinton. The left invented this term, stochastic terrorism, which is defined as a form of political violence instigated by hostile public rhetoric directed at a group or an individual. And it nearly worked against Trump. After months of hostile public rhetoric that Trump is a fascist and literally Hitler, there were 3 assassination attempts against him. Now, I'm not suggesting Republicans wouldn't try and do the same. An elephant called Kamala was euthanized right before the election. Was this a coincidence, or was it a confused assassin? The Democrats also announced plans to influence the justice system at the highest level by stuffing the Supreme Court with Democrat justices. When Supreme Court justices die or stand down, whoever's president gets to appoint a new one. By chance, Trump got to appoint 3, so the Supreme Court swung to the right during his time in power. I mean, it could have been avoided if Democrat Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had stepped down during Obama's rule, but leftists never want to let go of power. So to make the Supreme Court more lefty, the Democrats introduced a bill to expand the Supreme Court from 9 to 13 justices. This is the exact same tactic as using mass immigration to tilt the electoral balance. If the justices won't vote the way the Democrats want, they'll just airdrop in justices who will. But these weren't the reasons people voted. When government gets too big, it butts in everywhere it's not invited. This election saw the Amish turn out in record numbers. The Amish traditionally shun elections and the wider world. Their attitude is, don't mess with us and we won't mess with you. But somebody messed with them. Somebody from the government. Government agents raided an Amish farm earlier this year in a row over unpasteurised milk that left the Amish community furious. Raw milk is an Amish staple. They don't need your fancy newfangled heat treatment technology, Mr. Pasteur. And raw milk seems to be working for them. They look way healthier than your average fat-assed government seat polisher. Unfortunately, there's not much footage of the raid, as Amish people tend not to have camera phones. But the government stormed a farm, seizing papers and property just because they were selling organic food to their local community.
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Are you an attorney or?
I'm with the media.
Okay, alright. We're conducting a search warrant inside this building right now.
Okay.
So everybody needs to stay outside, please.
Okay.
Okay, so turn around.
Can I get access to that search warrant?
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Trump's message of smaller government resonated with the Amish community, and it probably helped that he's appointed RFK Jr. to his health administration. RFK is an advocate of organic food and raw milk. This guy, Scott Pressler, took time out from his job of protecting a magical amulet in Lord of the Rings to register Amish voters and got 180,000 signed up, many in the swing state of Pennsylvania. By the way, if you want some good news, the Amish fertility rate is very high. It's around 7 children per woman. So in a few generations, they'll be the largest demographic group in the USA. And after a couple of centuries, everyone in the world will be Amish, including you. And the raid on the Amish farm wasn't the only example of government overreach that made people furious. Peanut the squirrel was orphaned after his mother was killed in a car crash in 2017. News reports aren't clear if she was driving. Peanut was rescued by New York resident Mark Longo, who bottle fed him and nursed him back to health, then released him into his backyard. But the next day Peanut turned up at the back door with half his tail missing and insisted on moving back in. He became a social media star and raised money to fund a wildlife rescue centre. I mean, who could possibly have a problem with any of that? Well, some busybody reported Peanut as an illegal pet, so the Democrat-run city of New York sent its finest anti-squirrel SWAT team to kick down the door, seize Peanut and execute him. Lord knows how much taxpayers' money was spent on this absolutely essential assassination of a pet squirrel. Peanut's death became a rallying call for Trump supporters who were criticised for choosing squirrels over immigrants. Well, yeah, I've never heard of squirrels forming grooming gangs, and if they did, they'd presumably just groom other squirrels. Democrat voters jumped to the defence of the state. They said that keeping Peanut as a pet was a breach of laws. Well, you know who else breaches laws? Illegal immigrants. They're called illegal for a reason. Democrats said proper processes should have been followed to make Peanut legal. Well, you know who else doesn't follow proper processes? Illegal immigrants. They also said that Peanut could carry diseases. Well, you know who else can carry diseases? The government's response to illegal immigrants is to house them, give them money, give them jobs, get them all the help they need to become legal. But when it's a harmless squirrel, a SWAT team kicks in the door and executes him like he's Osama bin Laden. It's the perfect example of the government being too big, too biased, and too intrusive. With Elon Musk and Ron Paul on the Trump train, the size and reach of the state is going to be slashed. Javier Milei, the leader of Argentina, has shown how it can be done, and I'm pretty sure the government apparatchiks responsible for squirrel executions will be the first to go. Afuera! Democrats don't seem to understand. The state isn't some benign entity that just wants the best for you. The state is a parasite, and it's made up of people with their own agenda. Socialism is the novel idea that if you hand your money to a nepotistic cabal of Moloch-worshipping paedophiles who hate you, they'll spend it better than you would. There's so much hysteria around Trump's second term. Apparently he's the biggest threat to democracy. The sinister plan we should be worried about is the Democrats' plan to turn America into a one-party state that Trump has thankfully thwarted. Even Kamala's installation as a candidate was anti-democratic. When she initially ran against Biden in the primaries, she got no votes, but she ended up getting selected by the party cabal anyway. Kamala is literally a communist. I don't mean she's left of centre. I don't throw the word around like leftists do when they call everyone a fascist. Don't take it from me. Here Kamala is, in her own words, repeatedly espousing equity and redistribution so that everybody ends up in the same place.
It has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more. Equitable distribution. So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. So we all end up in the same place.
This is communism, and under communism, people eat out of bins and get executed for being the first person to stop clapping their leader's speech. It's not an optimum system for government. Inequality is good. If you can't be unequal, then you can't be better, so there's no point trying. Economies work on incentives. If there's no incentive to work, people won't work. I know the Trump victory is fun, and it's great to see fat women and low testosterone men crying, but it's also a victory for freedom and against open borders, one world communism. Anyway, thanks for listening. Please share this video with anyone in your family who's left-wing to try and make Christmas more fun. And if you want to support me making these videos, consider becoming a patron. For as little as £3 a month, you can join a community of the only sane people left in the West, and I get money, and you get to see exclusive Patreon-only content. There's a stand-up show on there right now. Anyway, thanks for listening. I've been Leo Kears. Bye. Bye-bye.